Continuing the tradition of annual PvE content drops, Blizzard Entertainment recently launched the new Overwatch co-op PvE story-based campaign, Overwatch Storm Rising. Genji, the cybernetic ninja with his sharpened blade and throwing stars, Winston, the talking super intelligent gorilla with his energy-crackling Tesla cannon, Tracer making up for her Cockney-accented sassy personality, with her ability to blink across the map and rewind time in order to recover lost health, and finally Mercy, the battlefield medic with strong angelic overtones and her handy ability to bring back the dead through scientifically enabled necromancy. 4 distinct operators and 1 quest to apprehend the reclusive and tactful omnic robot Maximilian, in order to seize information that could aid the Overwatch Strike team in tracking down and capturing Doomfist, the leader of Talon, the covert international terrorist organization. The mode starts out with a lengthy but lore-driven cutscene as the Overwatch Strike team enacts an ambush. The animation here for this cutscene is okay, but like the cutscene that accompanied last year's Overwatch Retribution event, lacks the visual style consistent across the rest of the game's cinematics. Everything comes across as somewhat blurrier and more cel-shaded when compared to the usual Blizzard cinematic style. I'm not sure if this is a distinctly creative choice to pattern the visual style differently, so as to indicate this being a different period in Overwatch history when compared to the more Pixar-like visual style of the current day, but I don't really much care for this. Don't get me wrong, I like the fact that Blizzard is taking the time to add in-game lore cinematics. I just wish they put in the same budget and effort here as they do with the character-driven cinematics we sporadically see online. After this cinematic, you start out in the interior of a 4.5 sized storage building. After briefly listening to the strike commander laying out the plan via radio transmission, your team sets out to make their way through a series of obstacles, namely enemy forces, so you may capture and interrogate Maximilian. Of all the Overwatch PvE events, including the current Holy Trinity, as well as the unincluded separate Junkenstein's Revenge seasonal mode we see around Halloween, Storm Rising is easily the most objective-driven mode, with a clear series of individual objectives, such as holding your ground in specific zones against waves of enemies, and later guarding a payload successfully to the end of its track, periodically stopping to clear out more waves of enemies seeking to overwhelm you. This culminates ultimately with the final boss fight. If successful, the match will end with the payload racing towards a wall and exploding with a gigantic blast, sending all nearby players flying backwards from the shock impact. Now, in addition to playing with the normal 4-man team, or rather the 1-man, 1-gorilla, and 2-woman team, you can alternatively choose to play the all-heroes version of Storm Rising, a separate altered version of the normal mode that allows the 4 players to pick any 4 Overwatch heroes from the available roster and create whatever crazy team composition you want. This marks the first time the Overwatch development team has allowed players to play a new PvE campaign in all-heroes mode alongside the normal version of the campaign. Traditionally, the Overwatch team has restricted the all-heroes custom mode to only PvE campaigns from prior years, not including the current year PvE campaign, whatever that might be. I think this is a great move on Blizzard's part, and shows that the team does at times really act upon community feedback. As in past years, the Overwatch Archives event has received some criticism for its restrictions on player-customized 4-man teams. This mode, and by extension this map, lends itself very well to a ton of truly great moments. I'm the kind of player whose attention is hard to keep on a single game for hours at end, yet I had an absolute blast playing well over 2.5 hours of Storm Rising without burning out or experiencing any boredom. While I was gathering footage to show off in this video, I decided to have a bit of fun and put together this little compilation, which I think can further illustrate my experience with Storm Rising far beyond brief words. With the vivid attention to detail in the map itself, including the new atmospheric weather system they created and implemented in-game specifically for this map, and hopefully for future maps as well, this map looks absolutely stunning. It's a very surreal thing to see an in-game map range from beautifully sunny weather to a stormy tempest over the course of a match. Alternative flanking routes are really prominent throughout, giving players some flexibility over how they choose to engage with the enemy. I really like this, as I think Overwatch is at its best when it leans more on the MOBA side in regards to its map design, favoring multiple lanes as opposed to the more traditional FPS map design, which usually favors narrow linear routes. It is a bit disappointing that there really wasn't much in the way of new enemy types this year. That said, the AI does feel more reactive and less prone to just standing around like idiots. Combat feels more of a challenge, especially when you play at higher difficulty levels. Unless your mechanical skill and combat awareness are more or less non-existent, you'll find it fairly hard to die when playing at normal difficulty. But as for the other difficulties, that's an entirely different story. Overall, my impressions of Overwatch Storm Rising is thus. The new map, as well as the new focus on Overwatch's overarching story, makes this campaign a definite step up from those of prior years. The improvements to enemy AI, along with the varied stage-based map layout, gives players a lot of strategic options from which to pick. The cutscene, while questionable in terms of animation quality, gives enough useful exposition without falling into the Destiny trap of boring the hell out of the player or forcing them to rely on external lore websites in order to understand half of what's going on. If you own Overwatch and want to get more into the story, or if you really like PvE campaign design, like what you'd find in games like Left 4 Dead 2, you're probably going to have a pretty good time here. You're going to find a really strong Left 4 Dead 2 influence on this specific campaign, compared to prior Overwatch Archives campaigns. And if PvE is really not your liking, at least this event brings with it some new cosmetic skins. At any rate, this is where I'm going to be wrapping it up for today. You've heard my take, and I'm not going to belligerently beat around the bush with additional unnecessary descriptors. If you liked this video, hit that like button down below, and if you didn't agree with my opinions or otherwise have your own opinion about Storm Rising, tell me in the comment section down below. If you want to see more review videos like this one, be sure to hit that subscribe button and opt into getting notifications so you can be among the first to know when a new video goes live. This is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, and peace out.